So thank you, Kat, for joining us on Gen Z Talks. I'm really excited to be talking to you about Imagen Insights. But before we get into that, can you share a little bit about your backstory? What makes you you?
Thank you firstly for having me. It's such an honour to be here today. So what makes me me? I'm of mixed heritage, so I'm Portuguese and British. I grew up in London and I'm very lucky enough to still live in the same area that I grew up. And so I have lots of friends and family around me, which is amazing. I have worked in media and marketing for lots of years. I'm also the co-founder of Dawn, which is a community dedicated to inspiring and developing women. We've been running for 11 years, so an amazing achievement there. I'm also a mentor to quite a few young women. And most recently, a bit of a kind of surprising thing is that I'm a recently qualified personal trainer.
Fit and fabulous. Personal training is something that I definitely want to get involved in, as in me being the client.
Yeah, maybe we could do a virtual session.
I'm all up for that. Mother, go ahead.
That's great. So Kat, tell us a little bit about Imagen Insights and sort of how this organization came to be.
Of course. So the organization itself, so what we do is we enable agencies and brands to crowdsource both qualitative and quantitative feedback and ideas and insights, but all from our GenZ community. And we do that within 72 hours. And the way that it works is that we offer remote opportunities that are paid for 16 to 26-year-olds. And we do that by connecting them with brands to give their honest feedback about marketing or about branding or about product. And we work with lots of different brands, but a few to name will be eBay, Gymshark, NFL, PepsiCo, Stella McCartney, and we do that to help those brands to tackle their challenges, so their business challenges. And we invite young people between those ages to participate. It's completely free to join our community, and they can join and then take part in as many briefs for those brands as they like. And as I mentioned, every time that they take part in a brief, then they will be rewarded for that, and that reward is being paid. The benefit as well is not just to take part in these amazing opportunities with brands, but it also gives these young people the chance to add that work and that experience to their CVs or their resumes, which then opens up doors for future conversations with future employers, or if you're interviewing, or if you're kind of just trying to decide what it is that you want to do. So it also encourages some of those skills that you might not have had access to otherwise, or it might not have been part of your studies, for example.
Who do you currently have as part of your focus group specifically, and what other regions are you looking for to expand?
Yeah, so we have a hugely diverse community, and that isn't just in terms of ethnicity and gender. It also goes much deeper into 5% of our community are registered as disabled. We have 10% that are part of the LGBTQ community. We have a high percentage of our young people that are from disadvantaged backgrounds, so they may have been on free school meals, for example. And so what we like to have is a real mix of people, because the whole ethos of our business is that we encourage diversity in thought. And unless if we were to pick a whole bunch of people that were all at the same university or the same school, or who'd all studied the same subject, then we might not get that diversity in thought. So if we can have lots and lots of different people from all different backgrounds across the world, then they're going to come with very different perspectives about things and be able to take part in those groups, the workshops, as you mentioned, or in any kind of any of our opportunities that we offer. So yeah, we try and make sure that we've got the biggest range of people. The only prerequisite and a requirement is that they are between the ages of 16 to 26.
That's great. So yeah, you mentioned how you get like a diverse range of people from all over the world. So what exactly is that application process to be part of that focus group, and what are your expectations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So firstly, it's completely free to join, and all that's needed is to fill in details. So we've just launched an amazing new platform. It's a web app based platform, so you can access via desktop or via mobile, and it's just filling in a few details about yourself, and then you become part of the community, and it's really as simple as that. The only expectation, if you like, is to complete the brief. So you always get the chance to accept a brief, but it's just to complete the briefs in an honest but very constructive way. But ultimately, the main thing is to complete it in your own style, because as I said, you know, it's really about that thought process. And if you're sharing your opinions or your views about a brand, the impact that that can have on how they then shape their marketing, their branding, or anything that they're planning to do with that insight can be hugely, hugely impactful. So having that honesty, having that style that is unique to you, is really the only thing that we ask.
Wow, that's like a really like authentic and deep sort of application process. And
Yeah.
one more thing, you also mentioned how Gen Zs can get paid for their involvement. On top of that, like what can like involved Gen Zs do to like get involved more, and what can it help with their future?
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, they can take part in as many briefs as they like. So, obviously, from a monetary perspective, the more they take part, the more they'll get paid, which is brilliant. But I think what we found, and the feedback that we've had from some of our community, is that they firstly might not have had access to some of these opportunities. It might not have even been on their radar, or they might just not have had something that is available to them like this. And also, secondly, it's being able to give that confidence to young people to have a platform to share their thoughts and their opinions, and why shouldn't they be able to do that? You know, it's hugely valuable for not just for brands, but for everybody. We've also launched a podcast, and every time we do one of our podcasts, which is once a month, we invite someone from our community to take part. So that sort of gives them an additional platform, if you like, to share views about, you know, anything that's going on in the world that we decide to talk about on that particular episode. And, you know, I guess as another thing, it's adding that to, it might be your CV or your resume, but also to your LinkedIn or a similar platform that could then, you know, if you say, I've been a consultant for Imagen Insights, that then goes for experience that you've had, work experience that you've had, so it can start to elevate some of the conversations that young people might be having.
Great, thank you. So I'll hand it back over to Anu for some other questions.
Perfect.
So Kat, I mean, one thing I really, really like about Imagen Insights is you call your Gen Zs Gen Z consultants, right? You stand out right there. It gives them respect. It, you know, puts them in a dignified position, which is something that Gen Zs always, at least from my coaching with Gen Zs, they look forward to. Now, how do you differentiate? Are there similar companies like yourselves, and how do you differentiate yourself with other companies, from other companies?
Yeah, I mean, there are market research companies out there, and lots of those, and there will be people doing sort of some elements of what we're doing, but as far as we can tell, even though we always welcome competition, as far as we can tell, there's no one doing it in exactly the same way that we are. And as you said, Anu, that is completely right. These young people are so talented. It is the best part of our job, is to see these insights and see these opinions and see these views that they share in this hugely passionate way. And so I don't think anyone is kind of doing it in the same way, and also paying them. That is such an important part, is that we wanted to pay every time they provide an insight. And now that we've got our platform, we've launched this new platform, which is our own proprietary technology. We've also had feedback all the way along from our community in terms of how we build that. And I think that's the difference, is that everything we do, we are building ourselves alongside our community. So if we wanted to change our logo, which we did earlier last year, and we changed our own branding, we asked our community what it is they wanted to see, and then we took that feedback on board, and then actually Imagen Insights as a brand name was born out of that. So I don't think there is any other company doing exactly that, but you know, who knows, maybe someone else will come along and try and do what we're doing.
No, I think what you're doing is very impactful, because this is the next generation, and their opinion definitely does count. And clearly brands really need this. You've worked with some of these great brands like NFL and BBH and all these surveys that go along, or these focus groups that you have with these Gen Zs. And I'm curious, I would love to be a fly on the wall to understand how these focus groups are run, but what insights did you get out of running these focus groups about Gen
Yeah, do you
Zs?
know what, it's so huge. The range of insights we get is so huge because it really depends on the briefs that we have. So for example, you know, we ran an amazing workshop with Gymshark earlier this year, and Gymshark are building this campus, work campus for the future, completely with Gen Z in mind. So what they wanted from our community was to sit there and brainstorm what that workspace looks like, and you know, what flexibility in working life means, and you know, how to make a campus and an office you know, completely ethically, and have, you know, all those concerns and worries that everybody has in the world, but specifically Gen Z, and building those into a workforce and a workspace. And so really it's less about the kind of insights that we're gaining per se. It's more about the insights that they're giving for each part of each piece of work that they're doing. And so for that, you know, a thing that it kind of doesn't surprise me, but as a millennial, you know, I've had to kind of fight for that work-life balance, especially early on in my career when I was working in big corporates. But now that's expected. And so, you know, Gen Z don't think in the same way. They think, well, I should be working flexibly. Of course I should. And I should be working in a diverse team of people because that's what I expect. And that's my friendship group. And why would I have to fight to get, you know, more Black people in a room at a table? Why is that a thing? And so I think they're really the things that it doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I think it's just a complete shift in a millennial mindset and attitude and working life to a Gen Z.
It's very similar to the baby boomers and the Gen X and the millennials, right? The baby boomers, they expected to join the workforce and be with that particular company for the rest of their life. And, you know, in comes millennials, they hold on, that's not what we want. We did not work this hard to just stick to one company. I mean, or maybe we can have multiple different kinds of careers. And now Gen Zs, as you can see, have a different expectation. They want that, like you mentioned, the flexibility, the nomadic style of working, and the future of work could be completely different from them. So that's great. So that's a really good insight from the future of work. Now, one thing that I found very, very interesting that you posted on your website was about gaming. And that is always a clash between parents and kids. So this would be a Gen Xer or a millennial versus a Gen Z. It's like, don't be spending too much time, gaming is useless. And then Gen Z, they're like, I need to game here. So tell me, what other myths that are there that you can bust as Imagen Insights from your focus groups? What are the myths that a particular generation had about Gen Zs and that you are out there to bust?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, just because you've mentioned the gaming study, I'll kind of start with the gaming study. And, you know, I think there is that myth of, you know, gamers, Gen Z gamers just stare mindlessly at a screen, or, you know, they're eating junk food while they're in a dark room and they don't have any social skills. You know, that's probably quite extreme, but I've heard that myself. But actually, in fact, you know, Gen Z gamers, they get really annoyed with that because it underestimates the skills behind gaming and behind the work that they're doing to be really good at a hobby or you know, a skill, and that's what they deem. And I think, you know, secondary to that is that females don't game, or they're not classed as gamers. You know, I often hear that females will play Candy Crush, but they're not hardcore gamers. And actually, the report that we did showed that, you know, there were, I think it was about 30% of females and maybe 40% of the male respondents spend 12 hours a week gaming. I mean, that's a long time. And given that, you know, that's both female and male that are spending that much time. So I think there's two things. It's that, you know, gaming, as I said, the first part, then about the gender split. but also we did a really interesting report with the NFL. So it was more around sport, but also looking at gaming within sports, if that makes sense. And so there was a stat actually, and I just made a note of it, that we saw 60% of GenZ respondents to that survey spend significantly more time watching others play sports computer games than actually playing themselves. That for me blew my mind. I was completely kind of taken aback by that stat. And both of those reports, if anyone does want to see them, are on our website.
Wow, so they actually like to watch other people play the game, the NFL game?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know, right?
So what do they gain out of that? Is it just strategy, like watching someone?
Yeah, strategy, absolutely. But also, and you know, picking up tips, but also getting involved a bit like a spectator sport. You know, if you're watching a football game or American football game, or you know, kind of any sport, and you're watching it on a television, then I guess it's the same thing, but you're just kind of watching someone participate that in a slightly different way. And given that Gen Z are, you know, grown up with technology and are digital natives, why wouldn't that be a thing? But I think as a millennial, that really surprised me.
Right. I mean, this is why the gaming industry is starting to, you know, it can be for your viewing pleasure. Let's watch, you know, Fortnite.
Yeah.
That could be a competition right there. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a new sport, right? Gaming.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's really interesting. So we touched upon Gymshark, and this is great that they are trying to change the future of work. Just like we had to work with, we have and still are working with baby boomers. That's the millennials and the Gen X's, now Gen Z. So there's going to be some baby boomers still haven't retired, and they're like, yep, we got this. How in an organization, if you have an organization which has a few baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Zs, what insights do you have where we can work together, given that we come from a different mindset, different expectation? Do you have any insights around that?
Yeah, do you know what? I think it sounds simple, but I think it's a case of respecting each other and understanding, and it kind of comes back to that initial point of how we built our community around that diversity of thought. And you have to think in that way. So first, there has to be an acceptance that not everybody is the same as you. Everyone has some sort of unconscious bias, and that's, you know, that's fine, and it's there to be challenged. But trying to be open to that, you know, not necessarily being drawn to the same people that you would be drawn to. So you know, it might be that you naturally sort of gravitate towards someone that has the same skills as you, and it comes down to the same thing. So, you know, if you are willing to open your mind and have a conversation with somebody that isn't Gen Z, or vice versa, you know, is a different generation, then you are going to be surprised by how much knowledge you can share as a group, as a community. And if you do that in your workforce and you are open and you're having that conversation, then those perspectives around a table should be able to change and shift how a company works. Being, you know, listening to Gen Z and listening to how they value different things, what they think about the future of work. If you take that on board as an, you know, older person to someone that is within Gen Z, it's only going to benefit you, but it has to be your own mindset shift. So you have to be open to do that. Once you're open to do that, then I think things start to change. And you know, a case in point is that Jay and I, so my co-founder and I, are both millennials. We hire Gen Z. So we hire people from within our community, not only to obviously, you know, because it's going to be hugely important for us, but also to teach us. And we're very aware that we're running a company all about Gen Z, but we're not Gen Z ourselves. So how are we going to do that? We're going to listen to them. We're going to get them around us. We're going to surround ourselves with people with different skill sets and different opinions. And then we're going to be able to grow and change and adapt and learn from that.
And obviously there is going to be a difference in opinion about certain things. And how do you manage that? I mean, how do you have that conversation with a Gen Z and yourself? How do you come to meet? When you have different points of view, how does that conversation go where you say, okay, we agree to either disagree or we agree to move forward? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that, you know, we often treat Gen Z as kind of young people, and yes, they are younger than you know, maybe you and I, but they're still people. And so, you know, we don't have to, it doesn't necessarily have to be overcomplicated. It's about engaging and listening. And, you know, I might not agree with every single idea that somebody in our team puts on the table, but I'm willing to compromise and to adapt it, and also to try stuff. So we often try things. For example, we're always trying to build our community. That's the backbone of our business. We want to get, you know, more and more consultants to join us from across the world. How are we going to do that? So we ask everybody to put ideas in, and we try them. And if we try them and they don't work, okay, well, we've tried it and we haven't necessarily lost anything, because it's a learning for us. And so I think that's my main tip, is being open and trying. And likewise, they might not always agree with some of the things that I do, or that I put my ideas on the table. But again, we'll try them, and then they might learn something from that. And so it's really just being open, being adaptable, compromising, and having really open conversations. And that seems to work really well for us.
So Kat, I'm really interested in understanding the purchasing patterns of Gen Zs. I noticed that you did a case study on luxury brands. If you can just delve into that and explain to us what Gen Zs are like as shoppers.
Yeah, I mean, Gen Z have a huge spending power, and you know, I think it's around kind of 4.4 trillion. Well, that's by 2030, I think, 4.4 trillion. And they are already, buying a lot of luxury fashion, specifically. And we ran an amazing report last year in partnership with Stella McCartney, and there were some great things that we found in there. And one being that, while they love luxury fashion and they like to browse online, they actually, I think it was around 53% of them, of our respondents, still like to go into store to purchase those clothes. And yes, it could be down to the high price point of those items, but I found that a really kind of interesting stat, specifically around fashion. And I think also there was a really good example, and this wasn't from our report, but kind of on the same topic, which was, I'm not sure if you saw it, but I think it was the 17th of May that Gucci produced this huge digital experiential event, and it featured a limited digital version of one of their bags. I think it was around an hour that it was available for, and there were loads of people that snapped it up for about, I think it worked out for about $6. And then what was really interesting is resellers then started to make a limited edition version of that bag, and then that got really weird and ended up selling for about $4,000. So the point there is that there's luxury fashion, but there's also digital fashion. And I think, especially for Gen Z who are digital natives and have grown up with technology, that this is now also a real trend to watch, and something that I think Gen Z are going to be much more on and much more aware of than perhaps other generations are. So I think there's kind of, the 2 points is that they've got a huge spending power and absolutely are buying luxury fashion, albeit still going in store. But then also there's this massive rise of digital fashion, luxury fashion, with that Gucci example in mind, that also, you know, can then completely elevate a brand and i.e. one product for this generation specifically.
So what does a digital Gucci bag look like?
You'll have to look it up. I can't remember the name of it. It's called something B, and it's a beautiful bag, and it looks great, but it's still digital. And I don't know, for you and I find that strange, because I love handbags, but I like the physical product. But you know, if that's the world that it's going in now, then you know, who knows what you could do with different products and whole outfits and you know, accessories specifically as well, and also the money that you can make, right? I mean, that's a huge increase on your $6 to your $4,000. I mean, that's pretty epic.
Wow. I mean, yeah, and now with AR and VR coming in, I think fitting rooms can go away.
Yes, exactly.
Just try things on just on the computer right now. So this is phenomenal. Thank you.
But also, I think, I don't know if you saw, but Snapchat recently launched their face filters and their skin filter. So you can actually now have different skin tones that you can then visualize. So if you're looking at an outfit and you're looking at makeup, it's an amazing addition. And I think that is just another way that you know, brands like Snapchat and social brands are going to start to develop the technology that they have in line with people you know, being online and researching digital fashion and researching fashion generally before they go in store. I think that's going to be hugely powerful as well.
Imagen Insights could potentially blow up to doing so much more. And I'm just wondering, in the short term, you just launched right now, but in the short term, what other aspirations do you and your co-founder have for Imagen Insights?
Yeah, do you know what, we started with this kind of mission, which was to help young people to shape their future, and that obviously still remains. And now we've had a couple of years or a year and a half of kind of running this business and it growing. The first thing is to hire people so that we can expand, because we need more talented people within our organization to help us to grow. We also want to expand, so we've seen a rapid increase in consultants in the US, and then we've got, you know, consultants from Nigeria to Portugal to Australia to kind of, you know, all over the world. But we want to expand into those markets because as I sort of touched on in the beginning, it's really important that we get people from different locations as well as all of those other data points that we've mentioned. So that is absolutely growth for the community is number one, hiring to help us to do that. And then, yeah, providing different types of opportunities. So at the moment, we offer two types of opportunities, and that's our instant insight piece, which is filling out questions on behalf of the brands, and then the workshop side of things, which is kind of going in a bit deeper, like the Gymsharks and the NFL work that we did. So if we might be able to add more products to that. And then, you know, for Jay and I, Jay is the complete sales guru, if you like. So for him to be able to focus on different conversations, and for me, you know, I spend a lot of my time talking with education providers or youth organisations or anyone that you know, has young people within their organisation, whatever that might be, to explain what we do, but also to talk about my experience of you know, where I've come from and entrepreneurship, and you know, if running a business is something that young people might want to do, then how can we help them to do that? So I think if we can hit all those initial goals, then that will allow us more time to be able to do those things, and that's kind of where we are at the moment.
Wow. And you know, we're in Toronto, Canada, and if there are people who are interested in participating in your workshops or participating in your briefs, as you call it. So briefs are surveys, right? It's a survey
Yes.
that they fill up. How do they how can they connect with you? Is it?
Yeah, yeah, great question. Yeah, so if they go to our website, which is www.imageninsights.com, then all of the details are there and they can sign up. And it's like I said, it's a really quick thing. Also, of course, all of our social media and me directly, Agostinho on LinkedIn. So it's really, if you know, if people want to connect or have any other questions or want to join, they're really the best ways to find us.
Wow, I think what you're doing is great for Gen Zs, especially. A whole new generation is coming along. More to come, as always, as humans evolve. But just understanding the insights of a particular generation is key. So thank you so much for doing this through Imagen Insights, and I'm sure it's going to be as powerful as you just launched, and I'm sure you're going to have a powerful journey. Thank you so much, Kat, for joining us.
I really hope so. Thanks so much. Thank you.